The Art of Magnetic Connection, a First Date Mastery. As you settle into preparing for the date and begin this journey toward what could be a wonderful evening, I want to share something with you about a person who discovered the secret to creating instant connection with anyone they met, and I'm curious about which part of their story will resonate most deeply with your own natural ability to charm and connect. You might wonder how quickly you can transform from someone who's nervous about making a good impression into someone who's genuinely excited about discovering another human being, because the truth is, the most magnetic people aren't focused on being liked. They're focused on being genuinely interested in others. This person learned that charm isn't about performing or pretending. It's about becoming so present and curious that others feel truly seen and heard in your presence. Have you ever noticed how some people seem to light up a room, not because they're trying to be the center of attention, but because they make everyone around them feel like they're the most fascinating person in the world? Well, this person discovered that the secret to instant rapport isn't about being impressive. It's about being impressed by others, about approaching every interaction with genuine curiosity and delight. The sooner you understand that your date is probably just as nervous as you are and wants this to go well too, the sooner you can shift from trying to impress to simply enjoying the process of getting to know someone new. I wonder if you can imagine what it would feel like to walk into that restaurant or coffee shop with the quiet confidence that comes from knowing you're about to give someone the gift of your complete attention. You don't have to be perfect to be charming, because true charm comes from authenticity, from being comfortable enough in your own skin that others feel comfortable around you too. Some people think that being attractive means having all the right answers, but this person discovered that being genuinely curious and asking the right questions is infinitely more magnetic than trying to sound clever or impressive. Speaking to yourself with gentle confidence, begin to notice how your body naturally knows how to create connection through subtle mirroring, through leaning in when someone shares something important, through maintaining eye contact that says, "I'm completely present with you right now." I can sense that you already have an intuitive understanding of these nonverbal cues, even if you haven't consciously recognized your natural ability to read and respond to others. That reminds me of a story about a master chef who was asked about the secret to creating memorable meals. They explained that it wasn't about following complex recipes or using exotic ingredients. It was about paying attention to each person who sat at their table, noticing what brought them joy, what made them feel nourished, what left them feeling satisfied and cared for. Dating works the same way. The most memorable connections come from paying attention to what makes the other person feel genuinely appreciated and understood. By the way, have you noticed how the best conversations feel less like interviews and more like collaborative explorations, where each person's contribution builds on what the other has shared? This person learned that instead of having a mental list of topics to cover, they could simply follow the natural flow of curiosity, asking follow-up questions that showed they were truly listening, that they cared about the details that mattered to their date. I'm not going to tell you to rehearse a bunch of conversation starters, because that would be like trying to dance by memorizing steps instead of feeling the music. Instead, I suggest you might approach this date with the understanding that every person has fascinating stories, unique perspectives, and experiences that could surprise and delight you if you're genuinely curious enough to discover them. Those who understand the art of connection recognize that the most powerful question you can ask isn't, "What do you do?" but "What excites you? or what's been surprising you lately, or what's something you're looking forward to. The person in our story found that these kinds of questions opened doors to conversations that revealed the real person behind the first date nervousness. Even though it might feel counterintuitive, you can create the strongest impression by focusing less on the impression you're making and more on the experience you're creating for both of you. The question isn't whether you'll say everything perfectly, but whether you'll be present enough to notice and respond to the moments of genuine connection that naturally arise. Let me ask you this. What would happen if you discovered that your natural curiosity about people, your genuine interest in their thoughts and experiences, was actually the most attractive quality you could bring to any interaction? Well, this person found that when they stopped trying to be interesting and started being interested, everything changed about how others responded to them. You may not be aware of it yet, but your body language is already communicating volumes about your intentions and your comfort level. And the most attractive body language isn't about striking poses or following rules. It's about being genuinely engaged with the person in front of you. When you're truly listening, when you're really present, your body naturally mirrors that engagement in ways that make others feel valued and connected. Your unconscious mind already knows how to read the subtle cues that tell you when someone is enjoying themselves, when they're feeling comfortable, when they're ready to share something more personal. The person in our story realized that by trusting these instincts and responding authentically, they could create a sense of ease and connection that made every interaction feel natural and enjoyable. What's it like when you realize that the goal isn't to avoid awkward moments, but to navigate them with grace and humor, to let them become opportunities for authentic connection rather than sources of anxiety? You might find that this perspective transforms your entire approach to dating, making it feel less like a performance and more like an adventure. I know you're wondering how to balance being genuinely interested in your date while also sharing enough about yourself to create mutual connection. Here's what the person in our story discovered. The most magnetic people are generous with their attention and selective with their stories, sharing just enough to keep the conversation balanced while keeping the focus primarily on learning about the other person. As you continue driving toward your destination, you'll begin to notice that your breathing is naturally slowing down, that your shoulders are relaxing, that you're settling into a state of calm confidence that comes from knowing you're about to practice one of the most enjoyable skills a human can develop, the art of genuine connection. Something tells me you're the kind of person who can learn to see dates not as tests to pass, but as opportunities to practice presence, curiosity, and authentic engagement. Isn't it interesting how the pressure to make a good impression often prevents us from actually connecting with the person we're trying to impress? You could, if you wanted to, begin to think of this date as a chance to give someone the experience of being truly heard and appreciated, knowing that this gift is far more valuable than any clever line or impressive accomplishment you could share. A person can discover that their capacity to make others feel good about themselves is actually their most magnetic quality. Let's shift gears for a moment and consider what it means to end a date on a high note, leaving someone with a positive feeling that they'll associate with you long after the evening is over. You may find that the most memorable endings come not from grand gestures, but from genuine moments of appreciation, from taking a moment to acknowledge something specific you enjoyed about spending time with them. I suggest you might begin to notice opportunities to offer genuine compliments throughout the evening. If that's okay with you, not the superficial kind that anyone could give, but the specific observations that show you've been paying attention to who they are, what they value, what makes them unique. How does it feel knowing that your ability to make someone feel seen and appreciated is actually a form of emotional generosity, a way of giving that costs you nothing but can make someone's entire day brighter? Perhaps you might allow yourself to feel excited about the opportunity to practice this skill, to discover what happens when you approach dating as a chance to be of service rather than a test of your worthiness. Before you convince yourself that you need to be more charming or more interesting or more impressive, consider this. Every person who's ever made you feel truly good about yourself probably wasn't trying to impress you. They were simply being present with you, interested in you, genuinely engaged with who you are. Speaking of being present, have you ever considered that the most attractive quality you can bring to any interaction is your undivided attention? Well, this person realized that in a world where everyone is distracted, where people are constantly checking their phones and thinking about other things, the person who can offer complete presence becomes incredibly magnetic. The sooner you understand that rapport isn't something you create through techniques, but something that emerges naturally when two people feel safe and curious with each other, the sooner you can relax into being authentically yourself. You already possess everything you need to create connection: empathy, curiosity, the ability to listen, and the capacity to appreciate what makes another person unique. I'm curious about which moment during your date will be the first when you notice that you've completely forgotten to worry about how you're coming across, because you've become so genuinely engaged with getting to know this person. Those who truly understand connection know that the best dates feel less like interviews and more like discoveries. That makes sense, doesn't it? That the most charming people aren't trying to be charming, they're simply being genuinely interested in others, present in the moment, and generous with their attention and appreciation. You're probably beginning to feel already, aren't you? How much more relaxed and confident you become when you focus on giving rather than getting. On another note, I want to share something that might surprise you about the power of vulnerability in creating connection. Imagine a person who's so comfortable with their own imperfections that they can laugh at themselves, who can share their genuine thoughts and feelings without needing to present a perfect image. This kind of authenticity is incredibly attractive because it gives others permission to be real too. Have you realized yet how much more enjoyable conversations become when you stop trying to say the right thing and start saying the true thing? The person in our story discovered that their most successful connections came when they were willing to be genuinely themselves, complete with quirks and imperfections and unique perspectives. You might be wondering how this applies to your own approach to dating, and here's what I want you to consider. Every time you felt truly connected to someone, every time you've enjoyed a conversation so much that time seemed to disappear, every time you've left an interaction feeling energized and happy, you were probably experiencing the natural result of genuine presence and mutual interest. By the way, have you noticed how the best questions aren't the ones you ask to fill silence, but the ones that arise naturally from genuine curiosity about what the other person has shared? This person learned that truly listening means being so engaged with what someone is saying that follow-up questions emerge organically, that the conversation becomes a collaborative exploration rather than a series of predetermined topics. I'm not going to tell you to follow some script or checklist of things to say, because that would be like trying to have a spontaneous conversation while reading from a teleprompter. Instead, I suggest you might trust your natural social instincts, your ability to read situations and respond authentically, your capacity to find genuine points of connection and interest. Those who understand the art of lasting impression recognize that people remember how you made them feel much more than what you said or did. The person in our story found that by focusing on creating positive emotional experiences, by being the kind of person who made others feel appreciated and understood, they naturally became someone others wanted to spend more time with. Even though it might feel risky to be genuinely yourself rather than trying to be what you think someone wants, you can learn to trust that authenticity is far more attractive than perfection. The question isn't whether you'll be exactly what this person is looking for, but whether you'll give them the chance to discover who you really are. Let me ask you this. What would happen if you discovered that your natural way of engaging with people, your unique combination of interests and perspectives and humor, was exactly what someone has been hoping to find? Well, this person found that when they stopped trying to be universally appealing and started being genuinely themselves, they attracted people who appreciated them for who they actually were. You may not be aware of it yet, but your capacity to make others feel comfortable and appreciated is already more developed than you might think. Every time you've made someone laugh, every time you've listened with genuine interest, every time you've made someone feel valued and understood, you've been practicing the skills that make for memorable connections. Your unconscious mind already knows how to read the subtle signals that tell you when someone is enjoying themselves, when they're feeling relaxed, when they're ready to share something more personal. The person in our story realized that by trusting these instincts and responding with warmth and interest, they could create an atmosphere where both people felt comfortable being authentic. What's it like when you imagine walking into this date with the quiet confidence that comes from knowing you're about to practice one of life's most rewarding skills, the ability to make another person feel genuinely seen and appreciated? You might find that this perspective transforms your entire experience, making it feel less like a performance and more like a gift you're giving to both of you. I know you're wondering how to create that magical feeling of instant connection, that sense of having known someone much longer than you actually have. Here's what the person in our story discovered. Instant rapport isn't about finding someone who's exactly like you. It's about finding the universal human experiences that you share, the emotions and dreams and challenges that connect us all. As you arrive at your destination and prepare to meet this person, you'll begin to notice that you feel genuinely excited about the opportunity to discover what makes them unique, what their passions are, what stories they have to share. The person found that this shift from anxiety to curiosity transformed every aspect of their dating experience. Something tells me you're the kind of person who can learn to see every date as an opportunity to practice presence, to develop your ability to make others feel valued, to discover the joy that comes from genuine human connection. Isn't it interesting how the most attractive people aren't necessarily the most physically beautiful or the most accomplished, but the ones who make you feel most like yourself? You could, if you wanted to, begin to think of charm not as a performance you put on, but as a natural result of being genuinely interested in and appreciative of others. A person can discover that their ability to find what's wonderful about someone else is actually their most magnetic quality. Let's shift gears for a moment and consider what it means to leave someone with a positive, lasting impression, to be the kind of person they think about fondly later and want to see again. You may find that the most powerful way to do this isn't through grand gestures or impressive accomplishments. but through the accumulation of small moments where you made them feel heard, appreciated, and genuinely enjoyed. I suggest you might begin to notice opportunities throughout the evening to acknowledge the things you genuinely appreciate about this person, if that's okay with you, not in a way that seems calculated or excessive, but in those natural moments when you're struck by their humor, their insights, their way of seeing the world. How does it feel knowing that your ability to be fully present with someone, to give them your complete attention and interest, is actually one of the most valuable gifts you can offer in our distracted world? Perhaps you might allow yourself to feel grateful for the opportunity to practice this skill, to discover what happens when you approach dating as a chance to create positive experiences for both of you. Before you step out of this car, take a moment to appreciate the person you're about to meet, to feel genuine curiosity about their experiences and perspectives, to anticipate the pleasure of discovering what makes them unique. The person in our story realized that this shift in focus from worrying about being liked to being genuinely interested in liking others transformed their entire dating experience. Speaking of transformation, have you ever considered that the most memorable connections often happen not when everything goes perfectly, but when two people can navigate unexpected moments together with grace and humor? Well, this person discovered that their ability to stay present and positive even when things didn't go according to plan was actually what made them most attractive to others. The sooner you understand that your date wants this to go well too, that they're hoping for connection just as much as you are, the sooner you can approach this evening as teammates rather than as judge and performer. You already possess everything you need to create a wonderful experience: curiosity, empathy, the ability to listen, and the capacity to find what's genuinely appealing about another person. I'm curious about which moment during your evening will be the first when you realize that you're genuinely enjoying yourself, that you've forgotten to worry about impressing anyone, because you've become so engaged with the simple pleasure of getting to know someone new. Those who truly understand connection know that the best dates feel effortless because both people are focused on discovery rather than performance. That makes sense, doesn't it? That the most charming people are simply the most present people, the ones who can make you feel like you're the only person in the room, who can find what's fascinating about your thoughts and experiences and reflect that back to you. You're probably feeling already, aren't you? How much more confident and relaxed you become when you focus on being interested rather than trying to be interesting. As you prepare to begin this evening, as you give yourself permission to be genuinely yourself while remaining curious about who this person really is, remember that every great connection starts with two people who are willing to be present with each other, to listen with genuine interest, and to appreciate what makes the other person unique. The person in our story discovered that dating became infinitely more enjoyable when they realized it wasn't about finding someone who would complete them, but about sharing the completeness they already possessed, about being the kind of person who makes others feel good about themselves simply by being in their presence. And that, perhaps, is the most attractive quality of all, the ability to make others feel genuinely seen, appreciated, and valued, to give them the gift of your complete attention and authentic interest, to be someone they remember not for what you said or did, but for how good you made them feel about themselves.